Hey everybody, it's Atheist for the Cause with another article review for you, and we've got some serious information to discuss. Check it out. You wouldn't believe it, but Trey Gowdy is now involved with the Trump-Russia collusion. Dun dun dun. Because this isn't going to be politically motivated bullshit, right? My God, isn't it funny how anybody who's about to get a promotion or has some sort of Republican a power under Trump suddenly becomes involved in some sort of Trump-Russian conspiracy collusion. My God. So let's take a look at this wonderful article and also and discuss. I have some relating information as well, to kind of show how messed up the House is right now, the House of Representatives. And before we start, I wanted to say that I did call Senator Tammy Baldwin's office, and what her staffer told me is, because I was arguing that Trump shouldn't be investigated, and I was informing them that Flynn had been cleared by the FBI and that a lot of these investigations were bullshit. And first of all, the staffer didn't know Flynn had actually been cleared. So she's like, sarcastically, really? When? Flynn wasn't cleared by the FBI. When was this said? And he actually was back in January. And so then it was interesting that the staffer got upset and said with me and said, well, these investigations are going to happen because the Republicans are pushing them. And I think that's key. She was conflating some things, but the key here is that this isn't a Trump-Russia investigation like it's made out to be. If it was a Trump-Russia investigation, the Republicans wouldn't be pushing it. But they are pushing it because they're investigating just Russian interference in general. It's not specific to collusion with Trump. And while they will entertain the idea with questions here and there to show that the public that there was no collusion, there is no evidence of collusion. That's not the focus of these investigations, because those who are actually in Congress know that there's no collusion and that it's all political. So but let's get into this actual article here, and this should be fun. Trey Gowdy Trey Gowdy faced off with CIA Director Brennan this week in a House Intelligence Committee hearing about the Trump-Russia scandal. Think Progress noted that Trey's performance in the hearing backfired spectacularly. In the contentious hearing and interviews after, Trey Gowdy may have even implicated himself in the Trump-Russia collusion scandal. He may have even? Did he or didn't he? The fact that you say he may have tells me he didn't, because you don't know whether he did or not, which means there's no evidence he did implicate himself. Oh my God. Upon further investigation, it appears that Trey Gowdy's connections to Donald Trump run deep into deep pockets. His super PAC has accepted... Okay, super PACs do accept money. That's their job. They're unaffiliated with any campaign. Super PACs are run on their own, and this is the bullshit Congress set up for loopholes to basically, have a system where our politicians are effectively bought by lobbyists. This is the system you guys wanted. This is now the system how even politicians that don't want to work within the system, they have to, or they will lose. So They pretty much have to. So the fact that Trey Gowdy, or that there's some super PAC accepting large sums of money cannot possibly have any relevance here to Gowdy or Trump, because the best they can be is loosely connected. They can't actually be run by a candidate. But it says the super PAC accepted large sums of money starting around the time that the House Intelligence Committee began investigating Donald Trump and his campaign for collusion with Russia to interfere with elections 2016. Okay, well, that doesn't actually give us proof, just because there's some PAC that collected money around the time. I mean, these PACs are always collecting money. Meanwhile, Trey Gowdy is also facing a House ethics complaint for actions related to the Benghazi investigation against Hillary Clinton. Those actions by Trey Gowdy are called bribes by the Democratic coalition that has filed the ethics complaint against Trey Gowdy. If a super PAC accepting money that you think is related to a candidate, if that's bribery, every congressperson in Congress right now should be implicated for bribery. Everyone should be investigated. Everyone should recuse themselves. Everyone should be fired effectively, because all of them have accept money from super PACs for the most part. This is how our system is set up to work. This is how you guys wanted it to work. And there's the public wants money out of politics for the most part, but because the people in power they want their job protected by this money, you can't now complain that your political opponents are accepting money. That's how you set it up to be. Trey Gowdy is also vying for the House Oversight Chair spot after Republican Jason Chavez leaves Congress at the end of June. So this is all political witch hunt, because they know Trey Gowdy is likely next in line after Republican Jason Chavez stepped down in a House Oversight Chair, and they are scared of Trey Gowdy because he is very good at exposing bullshit. House Oversight Chair Jason Chavez is leaving Congress midterm at the end of June to, quote-unquote, spend more time with his family. That's often political code for leaving in disgrace. Well, is that what it is political code for here? And is that what what his reasoning even is? Because, when I look at this article on Politico, which is not exactly right-leaning, and from May 18th, Gowdy poised to replace Chavez as oversight chief, and I scroll down with my handy-dandy highlighter. The Washingtonian reported earlier this week that Chavez will head to Fox News. It's almost as if Chavez left to go to television. And I actually have a theory about why he would do this. Remember when Don Brazil went to CNN around election time, and she started basically beating the drum for Hillary Clinton to the public, and then she actually did unethical things like steal debate questions and give them to Hillary Clinton before the debate, things like that, and she got fired, then hired as DNC chair for her work, and then fired again. So I think that the Republicans may be doing something similar. He may have just been offered more money, but there are some serious investigations going on now that the Democrats are going to try to spin, and their media like CNN and MSNBC is going to really be giving propaganda to the public. And Chavez will, whether it's intentional or unintentional, he will be able to, unspin the bullshit, basically. And what's really interesting is when I grew up, Fox News was an absolute joke. Seriously. And now I kind of wonder if some of it was, if the poll was, how good the poll was, but there was a poll that people who watched Fox News were actually less informed than people who watched no news at all. Basically because Fox News put out such propaganda that people actually became less accurate with what they thought they knew. And now it's like the complete opposite. Fox News, I would say, has rededicated them to like a lot of fact finding, and they still spin things. They're not perfect by any means, but they're within reason now, whereas they were just ridiculous when I was growing up. And I'm talking like, I don't know, 10 years ago, they were just ridiculous. But now it's like CNN and MSNBC, they've basically taken the place of Fox News, and now they're like the ridiculous side, and they're the side you can't trust pretty much at all. And it's just like mind-blowing to me. The cable news networks have never been, the places you really wanted to get your information. It's always been the place to spin information. But it's like at certain times it's really bad, and at certain times it's just kind of bad. And so right now it's just like, it's just kind of bad with Fox News, and it's really bad with CNN and MSNBC. So now that we basically know this is bullshit, that Chavez isn't leaving in disgrace at all. While rumors are rampant as to why Jason Chavez is making a sudden exit, if rumors are rampant, why the hell would you say? So you don't even know. It's just rumors. Why would you say he's leaving in disgrace if this isn't politically motivated? So his sudden exit from one of the highest ranking positions in the 115th Congress. His Republican friend Trey Gowdy is eyeing the vacancy as the chair of the House Oversight Committee. So now that Trey Gowdy is eyeing the vacancy and pretty much the front runner as the chair of the House Oversight Committee, and you guys are pretty much scared of him, could that be a possible reason you're writing this fucking article? That's complete propaganda bullshit. This is not okay. The people are sick of this. This is why Trump won. Don't you understand? These types of articles and attacks will only drive people towards the Republican Party. They will only drive people towards re-electing Trump. But grabbing that gavel won't be an easy ride for Trey. Not only does he face strong opposition, the chair of this committee must not be ethically compromised. Trey Gowdy has a few problems in this area. So now Trey Gowdy is ethically compromised. Okay. Like, that's a pretty big charge. Before they were kind of they put in caveats and stuff. They pretty much just came out and said he's got problems with being ethically compromised here. This may actually even be slander. Well, libel, technically. This week did not help him in that regard. This week, before the House Intelligence Committee hearing on the Trump-Russia scandal, former CIA Director John Brennan testified that he was aware of information intelligence that revealed contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons involved in the Trump campaign. Republican Trey Gowdy, and by the way, that doesn't mean any that there's collusion or anything like that. The U.S. persons involved may not be actually a part of the Trump campaign. Like, they may be loosely connected, unofficial advisors, things like that. They, the Russian officials, like, are these people who actually worked for Russia, and did the U.S. persons know that these were Russians that worked for Russia if they did? I mean, there's so much here, because the people would have to have known the Russians worked for Russia and that have some sort of like purposeful collusion for, purposefully work with them against the United States to influence the elections in favor of whatever Russia wanted. And you're so far from proving that. Like, if you have some evidence, give it, but I'm sick of hearing about this with literally no evidence. Let alone, forget proof at this point. Just give some sort of evidence. Republican Trey Gowdy tried to squash this message, and as Think Progress noted, repeatedly tried to steer the former CIA director away from the discussion of Trump Russia. As the hearing was about the Trump Russia, the deflection tactic appeared unusual to many, or backfired spectacularly, as Think Progress stated. Okay, so wait till you hear these questions, and it says former CIA Director Brennan fired back on Trey Gowdy's attempt to close the discussion, and things got heated. There was no attempt to close the discussion, and I mean, it pretty much speaks for itself. Remember, this is a clip they chose to use. It's even more obvious if you watch the whole thing, but I didn't bother going to get the bigger video because the clip itself doesn't even show what they're saying it does.
Vernacular. You and I both know what the word evidence means. And we're not getting into whether or not you corroborated, contradicted, examined, cross-examined. We're not getting into how you tested and probed the reliability of that evidence.
He's saying that because, any of that information would be classified. So he's saying that's not what I'm asking about, because he wants the question to be answered. Because this is an open hearing, and Trey Gowdy has to try to work around any classified information.
It's a really simple question. Did evidence exist of collusion, coordination, conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russian state actors at the time you learned of 2016 efforts?
So there you have it, folks. Trey Gowdy attempted to close the discussion with CIA Director Brennan, and things got heated by asking about whether Trump colluded with Russia. That's right. You did hear that correctly, because that is exactly what this article is arguing.
I encountered and am aware of information and intelligence that revealed contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons involved in the Trump campaign.
That's what we talked about earlier. Now, keep in mind, you'll want to, keep in mind that all those points I made earlier about, do these people actually work for Trump, and did they know? Did they know they were working with Trump official or a Russian official and all of that? Was the Russian actually like part of the state government basically in Russia, or was he unaffiliated? All of those things. Trey Gowdy, he takes a moment to ask about some of this stuff.
That I was concerned about because of known Russian efforts to suborn such individuals, and it raised questions in my mind, again, whether or not the Russians were able to gain the cooperation of those individuals. I don't know whether or not such collusion, that's your term, such collusion existed. I don't.
Okay, so some interesting stuff right here. Brennan is saying that, remember, he's a former CIA director. He's when we say the deep state, this is what we're talking about. And so he's saying that, even after, so he found someone that was loosely or possibly directly involved with the Trump campaign, and that was discussing stuff with some sort of Russian that worried him to the point where he wanted to investigate. So he investigated. And in present tense, he doesn't know if there was collusion. Okay? In present tense. It's not that he said he didn't know, before the investigation, whether there was collusion. He still doesn't know after his investigation colluded, or in collusion wow, I'm tripping over my words. He still doesn't know if there was collusion after concluding his investigation. That's important. And that shows this is all political bullshit. It shows that the deep state is involved in political bullshit. The deep state has been against Trump from the beginning. And there were reports in the past that the deep state was literally giving Trump false information or half information. And, not disclosing some things to Trump. And the deep state is in a war with our president and possibly trying to get him impeached. And that is very close to basically a country that's run by the military. And in my opinion, what you should get out of this is that we're actually, not being too hyperbolic, we're actually relatively close to being opened up to a military coup, to be honest. And because it wouldn't be a coup directly with where the military is going and taking over. It's where the deep state, the CIA, FBI, NSA, those types of organizations go in and remove politicians they don't like, that they don't agree with, that aren't in their interests. Remember, Trump has gone after the deep state in the past, and Trump was even basically threatened that, you don't go after the deep state because they can get you 100 ways from Sunday or something like that was the quote. And where Brennan right here is showing his true colors, in my opinion, and showing that the deep state is actually after Trump.
Don't know, but I know that there was a sufficient basis of information and intelligence that required further investigation by the Bureau to determine what.
This is also a defensive posture he's taking, which also lends me to think that he is worried about what may be uncovered here, because he's saying that, basically if he was going after Trump without any sort of probable cause or anything like that, it would show that this is a political witch hunt, and he doesn't want that to be exposed. And so he's saying, well, I may not know there's collusion, but I had enough information to start an investigation. That's a defensive posture, and it's pretty much the weakest stance he can take.
Whether or not U.S. persons were actively conspiring, colluding with Russia.
And sorry, it's not just Trump. He's saying U.S. persons, so it could be someone loosely affiliated with Trump campaign as well, not just Trump.
Officials.
Do you know the basis of that information that you share with the Bureau? I mean, what was the nature of the evidence?
I think, Mr. Gowdy, this committee has now been provided information that relates to that issue in terms of.
For those of you who haven't watched, anything on any of these open hearings and stuff, these open hearings are show. This isn't where the actual information is found. This is where the Congress is trying to expose information from witnesses that, a lot of this is classified, and so they'll try to show the public what's being talked about behind closed doors in a closed setting, while not giving away all the details and not actually giving away classified information, just giving the public a general sense of what's going on. So
information that the agency shared with the...
And so, they basically already had a closed hearing, and so that's how Gowdy knows what what questions to ask, and now Brennan is basically referring back to the closed hearings and saying, you've already been provided information, and I'm not going to talk about it in an open setting because it's classified.
The Bureau, and that is something that is appropriately classified.
All right, and you learned that when in this chronology did you learn of the contacts between these official members of the Trump campaign, or because
see the point I brought up about earlier about the different levels of closeness to Trump? There's Trump himself, and then officially affiliated and unofficially affiliated. That's the point Gowdy is going to make right here.
There's kind of a tripartite hierarchy. There's Trump himself, there are official members of the campaign, and then there are folks who represented themselves as being connected with him.
I'm not going to try to...
Notice how he said that. There's folks that represent themselves as being connected with Trump, because that's a huge difference. Anybody can pretty much say that they're unofficially, related to Trump's campaign and stuff, and that there's some sort of unofficial advisor or something. Anyone can say that, but that's a far cry from being an official advisor. Even if it's true that they are unofficial advisors, that's still a far cry from being some sort of official cabinet position or something like that, like a campaign chair or something. These are official positions, and that's a much closer tie, and that would be much more worrisome if there was collusion among someone who is officially involved in Trump's campaign rather than someone who is unofficially involved and they colluded with Russia. That would be much less worrisome. And whether they can even collude at that point is actually up for debate, definitionally. But we all know there was no collusion, and this is all just bullshit.
Identify individuals, nor try to parse it.
I don't want you to parse it. I just want you to identify the individuals.
This is not parsing. This is a pretty serious distinction, for reasons I've already explained.
I don't want you
I'm
to
not
parse
going to
it.
identify the individuals because this is information that...
Inaccurate.
But Brennan, Gowdy's not asking you to specifically state names. He's asking you to effectively group people, whether it was someone who is officially or unofficially related. And I'm pretty sure Brennan could say that if he wanted to, but he chose not to, probably because this person had unofficial relation to the Trump campaign, which is a lot less serious. After the hearing, Trey Gowdy gave an interview with Manu Raju. So just keep that in mind, by the way. That clip we went over, that's what this article is trying to claim, that Trey Gowdy attempted to close the discussion. I don't know. I didn't see him try to close the discussion. Did you? After the hearing, Trey Gowdy gave an interview with Manu Raju, a congressional reporter for CNN. Oh, this is a congressional reporter for CNN. And said, it's not unusual for Russians to contact campaigns. So Trey Gowdy said that, by the way. And this is what they're going to try to nail him for. Just, like, listen to this, how innocent this is, that they're going to try to, like, now pin him as being involved with collusion that they can't prove. It's not unusual for Russians to contact campaigns. That's all he said. Like, that's pretty much obvious. So it says, this is incorrect. There is no reason for Russia to contact American elections campaigns. I'm pretty sure that Trey Gowdy didn't say Russia. He said Russians. Okay? There's a big difference. So what this article is doing is taking the Russians and turning it into Russia. Now, Russians don't necessarily work for Russia, do they? They're not necessarily officials to Russia, are they? So it could be some sort of businessman in Russia that has no affiliation with the Russian government at all. And that would be perfectly legal, wouldn't need to be disclosed. So that's a little small trick. It's extremely dishonest. And you have to watch out for those, like, wordings, because Ancient Alien style, they're now going to take this, modified comment and run with it. This could be the major Trump-Russia slip for Trey Gowdy, that, as it suggests, he knows that Russia does not, in fact, contact some campaigns. As it suggests, he knows that Russia does, in fact, contact some campaigns. It may implicate him in the Trump-Russia scandal. It may, but probably not. I think it's safe to say. It may implicate him, but since there is no Trump-Russia scandal, and since you don't actually have anything on Trey Gowdy, it probably doesn't actually implicate him in the scandal that doesn't exist. Matthew Dowd, chief political analyst for ABC News, responded to Manu Raju's tweet saying, "Never happened to me in 2000, 2004, never happened to Begal in 92 and 96, never happened to Schmidt in 04 and 08. First of all, how do you know? How would they even know? Sometimes what the Russian government does is they'll send someone in undercover, basically as a spy, and they'll act like a private citizen, and people won't even know that they're talking to, like, a Russian agent. And it's completely innocent and no sort of collusion. And it's also possible that Russia has never wanted the Democrats to take office because they've always been in favor of war with Russia or something like that. But I actually don't think that's the case, because I think Russia has been worried about, like, the John McCains of the world in the past as well. So, because there's a lot of Republicans want war with Russia or bang the table for it. So, or at least, like, sanctions and, things like that would negatively impact Russia. So Russia's just out for themselves. They're not out for Trump or anything like that. I do actually think that Russia tries to influence American elections, just like I think the UK does, Saudi Arabia does, Norway does, the United Arab Emirates tries to, the French try to, basically anybody, most, like, powers, I'm sure China probably does too. Most powers in the world are trying to have influence over our politicians and elections, because if the U.S. is a very powerful country, obviously, and we basically drive what happens in the world. But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the candidates, Both sides get foreign influence. How Trey Gowdy knows that Russia contacts campaigns is unclear. At this time, Think Progress noted that there are only two possible reasons for Trey to make this claim. When you hear something like there are only two possible reasons, you can usually it's pretty reasonable to assume that they're setting up a false dilemma, which is the case here. They're trying to pretend like there are only two options when there are more than just these two options they're about to list. The first being the most obvious explanation that Trey Gowdy is just covering up for Donald Trump. Okay. And that would not be unethical or some collusion or anything like that with Russia. So, and if you say that's the most obvious explanation of the two you listed, what's the issue? And I would say that there are other, possibly even more obvious explanations. Like, it's common sense. Because Russia has been trying to influence the elections, even according to the deep state, for decades. Before the 60s, basically since their existence, if you count Russia as being separate from the USSR, because going all the way back to the USSR, they have been trying to influence our elections. The first being, and I kid you not, that comes directly from some within the deep state. The first being the most obvious, it says, the other more disturbing possibility is that Russians do contact Republican campaigns, but this is not permitted in a campaign. Any foreign state... Wait, who said foreign state contact? Just because someone's a Russian doesn't make them a foreign state contact. Jesus. Like I said, it could just be a private citizen within Russia. So any foreign state contact with an election campaign must be disclosed to the FBI and to the appropriate committees. If it is not, it's presumed that there's something to hide. And if you could presume that, doesn't mean there is something to hide. And again, you have to actually show that they know they're talking to a foreign state contact. Because if they don't know they're obviously not going to tell the FBI. Either rationale for Trey Gowdy is feasible at this point in time. It is possible that he is covering for Donald Trump. It is equally possible that he knows firsthand that Russia contacts campaigns and does not want the information to come out. I'll choose C, other. There does appear to be money changing hands between those supporting Donald Trump and those supporting Trey Gowdy. That money began changing hands around the time that the House Intelligence Committee began hearings on Trump, Russia. Jesus, I'm getting sick of saying Trump, Russia, and Russia. How many? I should actually count this up. I have no idea, but how many times do you guys think Russia has been fucking mentioned in this article? It's like they're just trying to beat it into your head. You don't believe Russia did this? You don't believe in the Trump-Russia scandal? I'm just going to say it until you do. Those money exchanges are different than the money exchanges that occurred when Trey Gowdy was investigating Benghazi. Exchanges that a House ethics complaint has been lodged over. Anybody can complain about anything. It doesn't make those complaints reasonable. The Trump-Russia House Intelligence Committee investigation began around March 31st, according to CNBC News. At the time, the Trump-Russia investigation was chaired by Republican Devin Nunes. Devin Nunes has since had to recuse himself from the investigation over ethics problems. Now, it says, I found this article that says, ethics panel opens investigation into Nunes. And basically, it was... no,
I don't believe so.
It was some... weak ass bullshit, and it looks like my highlight is gone for some reason, but it says, okay, here we go. Nunes has said it appears that the intercepts were collected under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which is FISA. So, basically what they're trying to get him for is, they tried to say he broke the law because he revealed confidential information that There was spying on Trump going on through, which was okayed by FISA, the FISA courts. And that's going to basically be my summary of this. I'll post it and you can read this entire article if you want. But it really is as weak as that. And they're saying that the acknowledgement of any sort of surveillance is is him breaking the law. I don't think that's accurate, but I think he actually he made a comment here too. I want to say the charges are entirely false. It says, in his quest to assist President Trump politically, however, it appears that Chairman Nunes has committed serious violations of law and House rules. So, and even before that, so this is the allegation against him. The disclosure of this information by Chairman Nunes was evidently intended to try to lend some credence to President Trump's claims that former President Obama had Trump Tower wiretapped, claims that have been repeatedly been shown to be absolutely baseless, as confirmed by FBI Director Comey in his testimony before Chairman Nunes' own committee, MoveOn.org's ethics complaint read. And that's not true at all. It's actually been proven that the Obama administration and the deep state under the Obama administration did actually spy on Trump and Trump Tower. In his quest to assist President Trump politically, however, it appears that Chairman Nunes has committed serious violations of law and House rules. The charges are entirely, and then his comment to it is, the charges are entirely false and politically motivated and are being leveled just as the American people are beginning to learn the truth about the improper unmasking of the identities of U.S. citizens and other abuses of power, Nunes said in a statement. Now keep in mind, these are all connected. This is the political war that's going on. And in the sense that Trump said he was going to drain the swamp, and, you know, how the people voted Trump in to break up the establishments, it's happening to an extent because they are going after each other. And so all of these investigations into, you know, one another, it's like the Democrats will lodge an investigation, the Republicans will respond, and the Democrats will respond. It's like it's child's play where everybody wants to get the last investigation in, and they're just like trying to destroy each other and get as many people out of Congress as they can, I guess. So take that for what it's worth. I don't think that Nunes really did anything wrong, but remember the unmasking part. That's really interesting because the GOP representative Nunes is still investigating Susan Rice unmasking actions from May 19th. So that's still going on. This is what you call getting outplayed. He completely outplayed them. He recused himself. So the Democrats lodged this complaint, and instead of allowing this investigation to waste time and everything, he's like, screw it. I don't really need to be on this committee. It's not that important. I'll recuse myself from the Russia probe, and let the other people on the committee take it. And I'm going to continue to go after the masking. And he says it right here. He says, I'm still read into everything, Nunes said. What I've done, because I thought it was appropriate, as long as there's going to be these bogus charges against me, until that got cleared up, I was just going to set the Russia investigation aside. But everything else I'm still in charge of, Nunes continued, especially the unmasking. Talk about a threat there, especially the unmasking. So that's what he is doing now. He's like saying, okay, fuck the Russia probe. I'll go after Susan Rice for this unmasking shit of Trump. And And they are worried about this because there was actually wrongdoing. Unmasking is illegal. So, if Susan Rice, which she likely did, if she did unmask Trump's name, because basically, with that FISA report, they basically like hide the names so that it protects people and their privacy. And it also protects them from like political witch hunts and stuff. And Susan Rice allegedly went in and asked for the names of the intelligence that was coming from the spying. And so effectively you had the Obama administration and the deep state working together to go after Trump during a political campaign. And the reason that's important is because they can then use that information and relay it to like the Hillary campaign and stuff to help Hillary beat Trump. This is some serious shit. This is really, really serious. But remember when I said they're doing a tit for tat investigation? Well, I looked it up, and there is another investigation going on. It says from April 17th, conservative watchdog group Judicial Watch on Friday called for a preliminary investigation into two top Democratic members of the House Intelligence Committee for potentially disclosing classified information to the public in violation of the House ethics rules. So the Republicans are going after the Democrats on the same rule that the Democrats went after Nunes on, who's a Republican. And what I find funny is at the end of this, or well, not the end of it, but yeah, towards the end of this, it says Schiff, he's one of the two Democrats, because Chairman Adam Schiff, Democrat California, and Representative Jackie Speier, Democrat of California, were the two that were being targeted. Schiff said he did not think Rogers' request is a serious one. And so I think that's funny because, Mike Rogers, it says the committee's former chairman, Mike Rogers, Republican Michigan, also called for Schiff to recuse himself from the Russia probe in CNN op-ed earlier this month for discussing classified information in public. Now, is there a better way to destroy the investigation that they lodged against Nunes and show it was political partisanship than getting Schiff by doing the exact same complaint against Democrats, asking for them to recuse themselves in the way that the Republican recused himself, and then having the Democrats say he didn't take the request to be a serious request because he knows this is bullshit. I mean, I can't think of a better way to destroy an argument or, a political witch hunt. So that's what we're dealing with, folks. So, let's continue. There does appear to be money changing hands between those supporting Donald Trump. We already talked about that. The Trump-Russia House Intelligence Committee began around March 31st, according to CNBC News. And then on March 31st, a super PAC known as the Committee to Defend the President contributed $5,000 to a super PAC known as Trey Gowdy for Congress. Okay, so keep in mind, Trey Gowdy for Congress is a super PAC. Apparently formerly known as Stop Hillary PAC. And the Committee to Defend the President is giving money to, and that's a super PAC, is giving money to Trey Gowdy. So it's basically just super PACs are transferring money amongst each other. And these super PACs are not directly related to candidates. And they're trying to say that this is evidence that Trey Gowdy is accepting bribes from Donald Trump to basically get rid of the Russian investigation, I guess, and to defend Trump. I mean, even if you pretty much grant their entire argument, it's not illegal, it's not unethical. This is how politics works. This is how our leaders set it up to work. I mean, so until we can get money out of politics, this is the shit we have to deal with. But I don't even see this as a big deal. But they're certainly stretching it, the impact that this can have, and that, saying that politicians should have to basically not be promoted and recuse themselves from some sort of position of power. I think that's a little ridiculous. Even if you don't agree with the money transferring going on and stuff. Because these are super PACs that have similar interests anyways. And they don't even have like solid information that the reason for the transfer was, for Gowdy to help Trump. They're just saying that this transfer happened around the time. I mean, look at all these transfers that happened around the time. There's lots of them. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's payment for help or anything. So this particular super PAC is tied to a consulting firm known as DB Capital Strategies. Oh yeah, watch what they do here. The DB in this group stands for Dan Backer. Dan Backer is responsible for running Donald Trump's Great America Super PAC, which specialized in hiding illegal foreign contributions, according to the Telegraph. There's a link, but for such a serious point, like, let me know like how he specialized in hiding illegal foreign contributions. And the fact that they don't own it, they give credit to the Telegraph, tells me this is just bullshit. Because they don't want to take credit for that argument, because they know the argument is bullshit. The connections to Trey, and by the way, so the DB in this group stands for Dan Backer, or Dan Baker, however you say it. So it's not Trump at all. It's not Trey Gowdy at all. It's this Dan guy. The connections to Trey Gowdy are clear. The super PAC, known as Committee to Defend the President, is also sometimes called the Stop Hillary PAC. There are a lot of people that wanted to stop Hillary that didn't even want Trump to win. This is where Trey Gowdy's current House ethics complaints come in. And you can read that if you want, but on March 21st of this year, the Democratic Coalition filed a House ethics complaint against Trey Gowdy, formerly known as Harold Watson Gowdy, for accepting $6,000 in contributions from anti-Hillary Clinton groups while investigating Benghazi. I mean, so he's collecting money throughout while he's in office. That's it. Like, this is what campaigns do. You don't think that campaigns just start like collecting money at the, right before their election, do you? No, they do it the entire time they're in office. The Stop Hillary PAC spent $10,000 directly in support of this PAC could simply just want Hillary to be exposed and the Benghazi situation to be exposed. This could be like nothing nefarious at all. If you support what someone's doing, for instance, if you like Bernie Sanders' positions and you think Bernie Sanders is doing a good job and you give Bernie Sanders money, that doesn't give a sudden like ethical concern that Bernie Sanders is accepting bribes, because that's effectively what they're saying here. It's utterly ridiculous. And I agree that, it'd be nice to know more about who's giving the money and stuff, and that, but the politicians have set it up so that super PACs are anonymous and all of that. They even say some call this a campaign contribution, others call it a bribe. Well, you know what? It's legal. That's all that matters. In terms of American politics, it's ethical. It also means that, if you want to get rid of money out of politics and you want to go with a different system, have public funding for politics or something like that, where if, there are some people want some systems where, like, say, each candidate would get, like, so much money to campaign with, and it would be taxpayer money. And then that's all you can use. Like, each candidate who runs for president, say, gets, like, $2 million or something. If you want to go with that, or maybe more, like maybe 10 million. But if you want to go with that, that's fine. But that's not what we have now. It also means that Trey Gowdy, because remember, they're actually trying to get like Trey Gowdy to not get promoted, and into the House, but into the House Overwatch Committee and chair, and they want him to like recuse himself from investigations and stuff over this, which is utterly ridiculous. Trey Gowdy behaves in hearings as if he does not believe the Trump-Russia scandal is real. I wonder why. Because he knows it's bullshit. They say it like so matter-of-factly, like anybody who doesn't believe the Trump-Russia scandal is real must be, compromised and there's some sort of problem with that. Like, I think that's the natural conclusion, is that the Trump-Russia scandal is bullshit because there's no evidence of it. It also does appear that Trey Gowdy may have been given hush money in the Trump-Russia scandal in the same week that congressional hearings on the scandal began. Trey Gowdy is also running for House Oversight Chair, and that's remember, the House Oversight Chair. That's really what they're scared of. Trey Gowdy is fantastic at what he does, and they do not want him to take this position. Is also running for House Oversight Chair when his friend Republican Jason Chavez leaves office later next month. This is the main investigative committee in Congress and is one that is intended to provide oversight to Congress members to make sure they behave ethically. Okay. There's never been a problem with Trey Gowdy up to this point, so my position on this is you shouldn't expose it right as he's about to get promoted. If he was behaving unethically, you should have been exposing it this entire time. Because when you do it right before the promotion, it certainly seems partisan, doesn't it? It certainly seems to be done with an agenda, doesn't it? Trey Gowdy is facing ethics complaints as he eyes the position of chair of this committee. Okay, but they're likely false accusations. So right now they're just complaints. We should not treat them as if there's like something, as if he's like been found guilty of some sort of wrongdoing, especially given the timing. Obtaining the gavel for the House, and by the way, if there was some sort of good evidence that they had, then I would consider it more, but they really don't have much. Obtaining the gavel for the House Oversight Committee is not going to be an easy task for Trey Gowdy, or so you hope. He not only has ethics complaints on the docket that are bullshit, but he also is not going to run unopposed. Okay, but he's the front runner. So, fellow Oversight Committee member Representative Dennis Ross of Florida is reportedly eyeing the position, according to the Salt Lake Tribune. Okay, you could list all these other people. Just from a purely political standpoint, Trey Gowdy is who the people want. He is the most well-known congressman, possibly of anybody, And he, in terms of the Republican side, he's who the Republican people want. If they put Trey Gowdy as the chair, the Congress, the Republican establishment, and even Trump, they're going to get such benefit, like politically, from the people for doing this. It's going to just raise the excitement of Republicans and conservatives. Trey Gowdy is, like, from what I've seen, is universally liked on the right. Even libertarians seem to like him. So if Trey Gowdy thought he was a lock for the spot before this week, he may think otherwise. Sounds like a threat. House intelligence hearings were not favorable to him, in your opinion, and in fact only raised more questions on his vested interest in shutting down the Trump-Russia investigation. Remember, this is based on, it says House intelligence hearings were not favorable to him based on, like, a question that they, based on this this little clip here where he asked about collusion, and somehow that meant that he was trying to close the discussion. I don't really get what they're going for. So that's that. I mean, this is all pretty ridiculous stuff. Sorry this got long, but I wanted to go over this closely. Trey Gowdy likely to be the House Intelligence Committee chair, and this is exciting if he actually does get it. It's fun, or the House Oversight Chair is what it's called. I'm sorry, and hopefully he gets the position. He's very good at his job, and the Democrats are scared of him, which is why they're going after him. So I will talk to you guys later.